All right, there we go. So welcome to the Osmo for Schools webinar. This one's called 5 Ways to Shake Up Station Rotations with Osmo. We've got some participants rolling in, which is exciting. I'm going to give it just a few more seconds for the last few little stragglers to join, and then we'll get started. Okay, well, let's get started. Let's see, I want to introduce the hosts for today. Our hosts are Micah Brown and myself, Kira Westbrook. Micah is the Technology and Innovation Lead Teacher for grades pre-K through 5, and she's based in Wichita, Kansas. Micah is also an Osmo ambassador, and she has been since 2015. I think it's pretty safe to say that she knows even more about Osmo than I do, and that's truly saying something. Thanks for being here, Micah. I'm really excited that you're here. And then myself, I am Kira Westbrook. I'm a former special education teacher for grades K through 5, and currently I'm managing the marketing efforts for the education side of things at Osmo. I'm based in Baltimore, Maryland, and I've been with Osmo for over 5 years now. It's been an incredible journey, and this is one of my favorite things about my job is learning and sharing things with other educators in the community about how to engage students in the learning process. Before we officially get started into the meat of this webinar, I want to go over a few things about how it's going to go. So first, this webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be sent out to each of you in an email for you to reference at your own convenience. And then second, if you have a question, you can ask it by clicking the Q&A button on your webinar viewing settings bar and just type it in there. Micah and I will make sure that it gets addressed. And we are going to have a brief Q&A session at the end of this webinar. So if we don't get to all of your questions live during the Q&A session, we'll make sure that you get an answer separately. You don't need to worry about that. All right, I think we're ready to get started. Here we go. In today's webinar, we will give a quick Osmo overview. I don't know if it'll be 10 seconds. I'm going to try, but that's what we're going to do. And then we'll share 2 ways to incorporate Osmo into your English language arts stations and centers, 1 way for your math stations, and then 2 ways for your STEAM stations. It's important to note here that this particular webinar isn't going to spend too much time on what each app does or how each app works. So for those of you who are in attendance that aren't yet familiar with Osmo, just bear with us. We'll share places to find more resources on how to learn more about Osmo and how to incorporate it into any facet of curriculum at the end. And that'll go quicker than it sounds, I promise. And then we'll finish up with a quick Q&A. Okay, let's dive in. So what is Osmo? Let's see if we can take an entire webinar's worth of material and boil it down to 10 seconds. Here we go. Osmo is a collection of educational apps, and they focus on certain skill sets, and then there's physical manipulatives that go along with each app. The apps of Osmo are each equipped with Osmo's patented reflective artificial intelligence, and that's what makes the magic possible. So whatever's going on in the play space in front of the screen is what gets reflected through the tablet's camera via the red reflector. And then the software, it interprets whatever's happening and provides immediate feedback to the user or player. So whether you're arranging tangram pieces or playing with number tiles or even freehand drawing, Osmo will see and react to every real live move, which is pretty amazing and incredible. Okay, English language arts stations and Osmo words. The obvious choice here for those of you familiar with Osmo is definitely words. Osmo Words is where a picture prompt shows up on the tablet screen, and students have to choose the correct letter tiles of that word picture that's showing up and place the tiles in front of the tablet. So for example, like you see in this picture down below, there's a picture of a leopard on the screen. So the students then have to choose the letter tiles Leopard, and then place those tiles in front of the tablet in the play space. So in this picture, as you can see, that play space in front of the tablet's empty right now. And those students are working together to see what missing letter needs to be placed in front next. And then let's see, setting up Osmo words in an ELA station is super easy. First, we have thousands of collections of picture prompts that we call words albums. And each of these words albums can be accessed once you've created a free My Osmo account. I'm going to kind of walk you through that process here in this video. So once you've created an Osmo account, you would click on the My Osmo Words tab and then click Discover right there, and that will pull up all of these albums. And you can scroll through them to find ones that you want to do, or you can type in keywords, for example, blends. If you were to type in blends, here are all of the albums that have been tagged with the word blends. So as a teacher, you can look through these and see which ones would be best to use for your ELA station. And you would click on it, the one that you want to download, and then click the heart. And then you could download that to your tablet and be ready to use with your students. In addition to this collection of already made albums, you can create your own. It's fun and it's worth it, but it does take some time. Just click the Create New Album image, and you would go through and add images, and then add words to those images, and then you'd be ready to go with your own custom-made album. Like I said, it does take some time and some prep work, but it is fun. And this feature is really great for when you've got that super specific subject that your students need extra practice with. For example, one Osmo educator, she decided to create a custom album with the faces, a picture of each member of the staff of her school. So the principal, the secretary, the lunch ladies, the janitor, all of these people that worked there at the school, all of the grown-ups. She took a picture of each of them, put them into a custom album with their names, and then she used this custom words album to help the students learn the names of these faculty members. And I thought that that was such a crazy, clever idea. I wanted to share that with you here. It might not be as applicable in an English language arts station, but still really fun to illustrate how you can customize your own work here for words. Another way Osmo can fit into an English language arts station is Osmo Masterpiece. Writing is a huge part of ELA, we all know that. And Masterpiece is a tool that teaches simple lines all the way to detailed drawings. Students can use this tool to draw the subjects of their book reports and be super excited about their results. This picture down here below is a little fuzzy. I know I couldn't find a better copy of it, but if you look closely, you can see that each of these pieces of paper have the title of an animal and then the drawing of an animal. And if you look closely, like if you look at that sperm whale and this giant panda, and there's a snake up there, they're really good drawings. Early first graders did this. So we're talking early mid 6-year-olds, and they did these drawings. And the teacher who does this activity every single year always talks about one of the most amazing parts and outcomes of this activity is the confidence that it builds in these students, that they're able to hold up a piece of paper that looks amazing and say, I drew this. And Masterpiece helps with that. So they just picked their animal that they wanted to do their book report on, or their animal report, and drew the picture. And then the excitement carried over into the writing piece, which was really great. Osmo Masterpiece can also be used to spice up some handwriting worksheets. Like you can see here in this picture to the right, this student is practicing her handwriting. And the quote worksheet isn't in front of her, it's actually just on the screen, but she's doing the actual work, the actual writing on her whiteboard. And can you see how her writing is also showing up on the screen of the tablet? That part's really exciting for students. It just makes that magic factor even more happy. And that's the engagement that we're always striving for in our station rotation centers. Another cool thing about Masterpiece is that you can, it will take a time-lapse video. that you can share later. So if this particular student who's practicing her letter A's, if she was struggling with her handwriting, this time-lapse video would be a perfect thing to show her parents, to give them an idea of, her daily progress and how she's practicing her handwriting, which is huge. Okay, math centers, math station rotations. We have an app, Osmo has an app called Osmo Numbers, and it goes through a series of modes where it starts out with really simple counting and goes all the way up to complicated multiplication. And like all Osmo apps, Numbers is student-driven. So math becomes creative because there's multiple solutions to solve for and multiple ways to get to those solutions. Students are allowed to get creative with their solutions, and because of this, they're able to learn algebraic thinking, fact families, deductive reasoning. It truly teaches the relationship between numbers. Teachers are able to control the content that students are getting by locking and unlocking the modes to further drive that individualized instruction or personalized learning. And of course, grouping students together by ability, whether that be high performing and low performing together or like abilities together, either way works really well. There's one Osmo using school where they have this thing that they just call buddy time, where students from older grade levels meet with students in lower grade levels. And the older students are able to model the concepts from Osmo Numbers, like addition or multiplication or counting, one-to-one correspondence, any of those concepts. They're able to model it in an open-ended way with the younger students. So this is beneficial to both the older student and the younger student, because teaching, as we all know as educators, really cements that learning for students. And then as the younger students are participating, they're able to see these sometimes abstract concepts become a real relationship between numbers, and the learning gets more and more solid. Okay, STEAM. I don't mean to call that a buzzword, but I feel like over the past 10 years or so, it's become less and less trendy and more necessary. I think we can all agree that one of the reasons we educators love STEAM is because it pushes students into thinking more creatively, more critically. And when students have opportunities to think creatively and critically, they're more likely to succeed at solving problems, whether those be big or small problems. And Osmo, I can tell you, is so on point with this. For example, Osmo Tangram, this is just a technological twist on the classic Tangram game, and students have to use problem-solving skills, the creativity and critical thinking, but it's so much more engaging because the feedback that the screen is giving is on the student's work is immediate and it's clear. So that further guides that student on their journey to solve the puzzle or the problem. The cause and effect relationship here is much easier for students to understand when the feedback is so obvious and provided so quickly. So that little picture below, you can see those students working. They're looking down at the play area where those tangible pieces are, and they're also looking up at the screen to see how the relationship of the pieces they're putting together is, whether it's right or wrong. And the feedback is pretty great. Another way to bring out the creative problem-solving skills is with Osmo Newton. Newton is a physics-based game where you guide these falling balls that are on the screen into targeted zones. This is kind of hard to illustrate with just photos and like my verbal words. So I'm just going to play this little video here for you so you can see better what I'm talking about. It's just kind of hard to explain otherwise. So it's great for STEAM stations, Newton is, because getting those falling balls into the targeted zones takes quite the amount of critical and creative thinking. Whenever I'm working with students with Newton, I always get really embarrassed because I'm terrible at it. But there are so many students there who love this game and love this activity because it just accesses those bigger thinking skills, and there's that creativity too that just provides this freedom with learning. Students really love this challenge. And teachers love it when they can evolve things from their curriculum that they're already doing. So for example, if you're doing a social studies unit on, say, like state history, let's say you are in Texas and you're in fourth grade, so you're doing all about Texas history and landmarks and things like that, you could do Newton at your STEAM station, but instead of using things like your hand or markers or something, you could take items that have to do with the state of Texas, and you have to use only those items to get those falling balls into the target. Or if you're doing a science unit on seasons, you would only allow students to use items that have to do with the different seasons. So like leaves and pumpkins for autumn, sand toys and flip-flops for summer, maybe like mittens and scarves for winter. So things like that, just to provide a little more engagement in your STEAM stations. And then, to be a little more obvious with STEAM, coding. We're all very aware that coding is becoming an important skill to know. And Osmo actually has 3 apps for coding. And these apps are not only great for encouraging the creative problem solving and critical thinking that go hand in hand with other coding tools, but it's block based. That means that, that's the twist. So there are actual physical blocks, as you can see in these pictures, that students have to use. So they're literally building code. It's a perfect bridge between unplugged coding and the online tools that we've become familiar with, like Scratch and code.org. Osmo coding takes this abstract concept of like instruction writing, basically, and it makes it concrete. But going beyond just a traditional coding center or station where you're practicing the foundations of coding, the Osmo apps can also tie into other areas of curriculum like writing and music. So for example, our coding apps have really fun, creative characters. Our design team at Osmo worked really hard to make sure that kids were just as engaged with the characters as they are with the actual coding practice. So if you chose to guide your students on writing a story with these characters as they move about in one of our apps called Coding Duo, that would be perfect. So now you're doing STEAM and language arts. Or you could use Coding Jam, which is a music-based coding game, to create your own classroom songs. You know how like sometimes couples will say, this is our song. Well, you could create a song for your own classroom and call it your song. And each student would be able to code a piece or multiple pieces of this song. And something even more cool about Coding Jam is you can download that song and create an MP3 file out of it. And you can share it with everybody. You could play it at certain times. You could use it to make videos with. So again, just Osmo is super engaging, and we're always looking to make our station rotations more engaging. And it's possible with Osmo. All right. So I just gave you 5 ways that you can shake up your station rotations or your senders with Osmo. I'm sure you're probably coming up with your own ideas by now, and maybe you have some questions. Go ahead and ask those using the Q&A tool. Meanwhile, I want to share some resources that are available to you like right now. Resources, here we go. Let's start with some websites. We've got a blog, and even though Osmo is created for students everywhere, whether that be at school or at home, we have website. This blog has resources just for educators. So if you click on that red apple where it says educator resources, it will bring up articles about why technology is so important in the classroom. It will bring up ways that teachers use Osmo in their classroom, just things like that. I will say it's not as in-depth, but it is consistently updated, so there's more stuff on there to find on a regular basis. We also have a website full and solely dedicated to educators. It's schools.playosmo.com. Here you can find sample lesson plans. You can connect with other educators. You can read about schools that are using Osmo. You can learn about the products that we have available and their educational value. We even have an entire section just for funding. So you can look for funding opportunities in your area. So let's say you lived in New York and you wanted to know what kind of funding opportunities were available for educators in New York, because sometimes these opportunities are different state by state. So you could click on the state of New York and a list of funding opportunities would pop up. And then we also have resources on how to apply for those kinds of funding. So there's a ton of cool, really cool stuff here at this website. I encourage you to check it out. We also have how-to guides, and you can find these by going to our help center on our homepage and just typing in the word instructions into that little search bar. And as you can see in this picture here to the left, do you have instructions for Osmo Words? Do you have instructions for Coding Duo? Like, we have written instructions for every one of our apps. You can download them as a PDF for printing or just keeping saved on your computer or sharing with other teachers who might be curious. Anyway, these are a really great resource. And I'm not going to lie, even though I've been with Osmo for 5 years, I still look at these when I get tough questions, because they are really in-depth, really thorough, and we're always updating them. So they're a great resource as well. And then last, but definitely not least, we have a network, a couple of networks, actually. Our best one by far is our private Osmo Teachers group on Facebook. This is a community of educators from all over the world that are either already using Osmo, ready to share their experience and their expertise, or curious about using Osmo. This is a safe place for people to ask questions really specific to them. And then these educators from all over the world are super quick to reply and say, here's what has worked for me, or you might want to ask Osmo about that. It's a really enriching community of really great teachers, really great ideas, and even teachers will share their own files, like lesson plans that they've done, or extra organization tools that work for them. If you are on Facebook and you are interested in Osmo, even if you don't have it already, I highly encourage you to join this group. It's a great one. And then Twitter, obviously. I will say that Osmo is very active on Twitter, and most of our posts are targeted to the education community. It's not like for parents or marketing tools. We really do try hard to make Twitter good for our educators, including our monthly Twitter chats. Osmo hosts monthly Twitter chats where educators from all over the world can chime in with how they use Osmo and why it's so useful in the classroom. So yeah, follow along at @PlayOsmo and follow the hashtag OsmoEDU. Again, we have these monthly and they're really great. Okay, so I know that we do have some questions. So, and we do have a little bit of time left. All right, let's see what we've got. We have, looking through, let's see. So this is from Dave. He says, wow, so it seems like Osmo is truly a multidisciplinary experience. Yes, it is. Are there any lesson plans that are cross-subject or lessons created by teachers? Yes, so the resources that I talked about, those sample lesson plans, those are created by teachers. We also have created a teacher guide. We worked with a curriculum company to help us build coding curriculum and curriculum for all of our apps, and we've put it together in one great big book. I don't remember how to find that separately. I do know that it's available with our big giant education bundles that we sell to classrooms and schools, but I don't remember how to get it separately. So I will have to figure that out and then include that little tidbit of information when I email you the slides and this recording. But it is definitely available. Here's another question. Let's see. How much play space in front of the iPad is best amount of space for the gameplay? Oh, that's a good question. I'm just going to go back through these slides to show you. Okay, so here on this picture where Coding Jam is, that's the one with the purple box. If you can see those students' arms and how they're kind of diagonal, I would say anything from where their arms are at, or that purple box is at, and then all the way out to the edge of that table. That's the play space. Might have to draw a picture. In fact, there's a really good picture at the very beginning, right here, that play area. Oh, no, because it's definitely bigger than that. Okay, let's do another question. Oh, we're running out of time. Let's see. How many students would ideally be in front of an Osmo? That's a really good question. I know Micah Brown, who's helping to host this, she has coined the term "never Osmo alone," which I love. But you do need to take that into consideration when you've got groups of students. So I would say groups of students where you've got like 6 or more crowded around a tablet, it starts to be a little less conducive to learning and more about social emotional skills like turn taking and don't shove and push. So you do kind of have to go along that. So I would say, in my expert opinion, both being in classrooms as a teacher and as a representative of Osmo, I would say that 2 to 3 students around around a tablet with Osmo is the most ideal. What grade levels does Osmo work best with? Oh gosh, since we've been coming out with so many new apps, I would say 3 years ago, I would say first, second, and third grade are the best. But now that we have so many more apps, I would say pre-K, 3 to 5-year-olds, all the way up to 10 or 11-year-olds. If you want to get really creative as a teacher and you're in high school, you will be making a lot of your own content in Word. So if you're doing like European art history or something, you would be doing a lot of your own custom content. But I would say that for the most part, generally speaking, pre-K through grades 5 is probably the best grade levels to be working with Osmo. Here's a question. Am I able to create individual teachers and students accounts? Yes, that is part of the My Osmo that I was talking about. So My Osmo is a free resource where you sign up as the grown-up of Osmo, as the educator of Osmo. So accounts, we strongly advise accounts to be at the grown-up level, so the teacher or the parent. And then profiles are what is at the student or the child level. And profiles are housed within each account. And you can have infinite number of profiles. Just keep in mind that when students go to choose their own profile, they do need to scroll through all of the profiles that are associated with that account. So if you have Osmo in your media center and you're the media specialist in your school, so you have like 530 kids, you might want to consider grouping profiles together by grade or by teacher, just so that they're not scrolling through 600 profiles. I think that's actually all the time we have. We do have other questions. I'll make sure to get to those. But like I said, this is going to be sent to you in an email, and the slides will be sent to you in an email, and I will address these other remaining questions that we didn't have time to get. But thank you so much for joining us here today for this webinar. Mike and I enjoyed putting it together, and we enjoyed sharing it with you. I do want to say that this webinar just barely scratched the surface of everything Osmo is capable of in a classroom. So I do hope that you take some time to search those resources, to join the community, to further this conversation so that you can learn more. But hopefully this webinar gave you something that you can take away and use in your classrooms. Feel free to reach out to me or to Micah or to Osmo with any questions or comments that you might have. We also welcome your feedback. If you have an idea or a suggestion, or if you're a super user and you found this particular pain point that you were like, if Osmo could just fix this one thing, feel free to let us know. We're always open to those kinds of things. Thanks again for joining us here today, and keep your eyes peeled. And like I said, join the community so that you don't miss anything. And yeah, thank you, everyone. Bye.